All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live from City Hall. My name is Cash, and of course, this is Mr. Horacio de Leon. He is the city manager of the city of Laredo. Mr. de Leon, are you excited?
Yes, very excited.
I was going to throw you for a whim on that one. This is very laid back and conversational show for anybody that's new to grow yourself. It is a entrepreneurial self-development show that seeks to speak to individuals who are doing big things in the community that they live in, as well as throughout their personal career. And so I want to thank you because you're an extremely busy individual who has taken time out of their busy schedule to sit with us and talk to us about economic development today, because we are going to talk about that and why that's a big piece of the entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you.
And before I start, you made your way through the ranks, and I was reading your story. You have been with the city since 1993. You have rose through the ranks. Started as a code enforcement officer.
Yes, sir.
You were in the trenches.
Yes, sir.
And now you're the man at the top of the food chain, so to speak. What, through your journey, from start with the city to where you're at now, what have you learned about city management? What have you learned about that journey from then till now? And was it easy?
Well, thank you, Cash. Thank you for the opportunity. Really excited to share with the citizens of Laredo, especially those entrepreneurs out there, that their city, Laredo, is a great place to do business. We've been ranked in the top 3 in the United States to start up a business. So this is where opportunities are at. And when we compare ourselves to the rest of the state and the rest of the country, Laredo ranks really high when it comes to businesses, especially Hispanic businesses. But back to your question about my career, it's been a very good career. I've been I'm a lifelong Laredoan, born and raised here in Laredo. Went through the public school system, went to school in Texas A&M Kingsville, and came back. And really, after a brief stint in transportation, I came to work for the city. And you're right, I started in code enforcement in the community development department, and that was 25 years ago. And so it's exciting that Laredo has this type of opportunity, that I was able to do that, because coming from the lower ranks, you learn your city, you learn what goes on at different levels. So when you're at the city management, you have an experience as to what it is, for these code enforcement officers to be out there and work day in, day out, what they basically come across. But not only did I work as a code enforcement officer, I did that for briefly, and then I came into grant administration there at community development and was a compliance officer. Also did writing of grants and did a lot of real estate, and so learned that. And then I was basically picked through an employee leadership program from the city manager at the time, Florencio Peña, and brought me to the city manager's office as an administrative assistant to him. And so I've been in the city manager's office for a total of 18 years of my 25 years. And so, there's a lot to learn there. There's a lot of opportunities that you see that come through. But I always wanted to work for my city. I always wanted to give back to my city. I have a lot of family here, a lot of friends. And when I hear, people say we're leaving Laredo because there's no opportunities or there's nothing to do, I really want to change that attitude. I want to change that mentality. And it's not one person that can change this, but we need to change it as a community. And I know you've been very instrumental in that. You also have brought to the city several events that have improved the quality of life and the entertainment. And so I appreciate that. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us to do our part and to do for our own community.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you touched on that, because um, you know, it does take the whole community. It takes everybody coming together, and I've noticed that with your administration, you have kind of brought the city together in ways that where it was kind of sporadic, and now you're kind of I'm gonna lay things down in a certain orderly fashion, get some consistency going. Um, why is that important?
Well, Cash, I think that, again, through my experience with the last 25 years, I think, every city manager has been a good city manager. Every council member, every council has done their best in doing and when we kind of work on how the last administration did and work from there. So we stand on their shoulders. But, the last year and a half that I've had the opportunity to lead the city is I've tried to be, as transparent as possible. I've tried to bring in more of the business community, more of the stakeholders in every project, so that they can also, hold hands and work together. And it's not easy, but I believe that that's extremely important, because government can't do everything on their own.
Yep.
And the more that the people get engaged and involved, they'll understand, what the part of government is, and how they can also contribute to what we all want Laredo to be. And so, a year and a half is not long, but I'm hoping that, the citizens see this and they join forces with their city government.
You were a big part in the 311 call center. Some credit you as kind of kicking off the program. Because you mentioned that customer service is a big part of the city. Why? Where does that come from? Where? I mean, these are things that I'm reading about you, and I'm just like, man, that is unheard of from a city government or a city entity saying customer service. Because typically in business, and for entrepreneurs out there that have a business and care about their customer service is number one. Everybody knows that, and that's but why in a city level?
So I appreciate that you you note that, because I have to say that I come from a background where my parents were very customer oriented. My father worked at La Posada for 15 years. He was a bellboy captain, and I grew up with seeing service as number one. My mother worked in retail, and she basically her salary was based on sales, and so again, customer service was really important. When I talked to you about that I was recruited from to the city manager's office as administrative assistant, I was tasked with all the calls that come into the city manager's office requesting services. And what is your city government? When you look at city government, we are that. We provide a service to the citizens. And so at that time, there was no system to be able to track those requests. Those people call them complaints, but many of them are not necessarily complaints, but they're just service requests that citizens are looking for some type of service. And so I was able to, number one, bring a resolution to council to bring focus to customer service, and with a plan as to how we were going to address it. And that was kind of the start of the 311 program, where at the time funding was not available to go into a full-blown 311, but we worked at it, in steps, and to what it is today. And so it was about, taking a call, tracking it, asking the department that they basically respond, and being able to complete that ticket and be able to tell the customer, the citizen, it's been taken care of. Is there anything we can do for you?
Yeah.
And so today it's basically grown into a full 311 system where we have operators, we have a tracking system that, it goes into the software, and we can track, we can tell, what has been done, how long it's been taken. The next step is that citizens can log in and see for themselves, where they are, where that service request is, and also establish some policies for the departments. So if somebody reports a pothole, can we guarantee that within 24 hours or within 48 hours that pothole is going to be filled? And
Right.
so that's just, again, improving the citizens' quality of life in the city that they live in.
That's exciting because, I'm a lifelong also. And when I hear that, it's kind of like that Domino's Pizza app, if you've ever used it. It basically tracks your pizza, and I kind of hear that that's where you're going with the service request. And the other thing that I see is that you're looking at it not as a complaint, but as a service request. It's just, typically we look at the negative, we look at it and we're like, oh man, somebody's complaining about something in the city, but really they're just asking for a service to be done. So I'm excited about the 311 program because I've also known that it's grown into accountability. So if you put in a service request for XYZ, some type of service, it has to be met within a certain amount of time, right?
Right now, we're working on guaranteeing that. We definitely have policies in place that we tried, but as you know, different service requests. Sometimes there's other information that is not available that we encounter. So you may have a dirty lot, weeded and with trash, and we have to find the owner to be able to get it cleaned. That owner has certain rights and certain time that we have to allow it. So sometimes you might see that it's been 100 days and that lot hasn't been cleaned. Well, there's a due process, but all that gets tracked. The information is there so that people can see why. And that's important because people may think, well, the city's not responding, they just forget about it. But there's always a process. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a lot to improve and we've come a long way, but that's what we're working on a daily basis.
It's exciting. You are, the mayor quoted you as quiet but approachable, somebody who's passionate about the city. I was looking at it, and when I was reading some of the things and accomplishments, I automatically thought the silent assassin. And you want to know why? Because you move in silence, you make moves in silence, and then you don't really, and you're not kind of looking for the glory. You're just looking to do for the city. Stay humble but work hard. That kind of, stay humble, stay hungry kind of thing. And it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of live by. I live by that. Stay humble, stay hungry. What's next? Okay, we completed this project. Why is that important?
Well, it's important again because we accept our role as public servants. We accept our role as city employees. We shouldn't be politicians. The politicians are there, to represent their constituents, and the work that we do is for them, on behalf of them, and so they are the ones that need to get the glory. But again, over the last 25 years, I've learned that it's important to stay humble. It's important that we move the projects forward regardless of the politics. And once council agrees on and passes an ordinance, it's no longer an issue for staff. Staff basically executes that policy. So if we understand our roles, I think that we can get a lot done. When they say that I'm quiet, that could be looked in different ways. But I'm not one to like to just speak out to hear myself. I'd like that when I basically say something that I'm sure about what I'm saying, that I've researched it, and that it's going to be something positive. And so many times, as the discussions, the debates are going on, I'm thinking about, okay, how can we resolve this? How can we move forward on this? How can we turn this into a positive? And so that's basically, how I operate.
Yeah, you don't speak on a whim. You research issues, and that's important because a lot of times you don't want to get caught with your foot in your mouth, and I'm glad to hear that. And that's the reason why you're at where you're at. I believe that. Moving on though, you're passionate. You're quoted about being passionate about projects and seeing them come to life, especially when it comes to infrastructure. Why are you passionate about infrastructure?
I believe that infrastructure After, of course, public safety, infrastructure is critical to the economic development of any city. Having the appropriate infrastructure, opens up your city for the right type of development, smart growth. And in Laredo, as isolated as we are from other areas, we normally don't fare well with the federal and state grants for that infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I say that because most of the formulas are based on population. And so when you look at the valley and you look at, let's say, we always get compared to the city of McAllen. City of McAllen is smaller than the city of Laredo, but their metropolitan statistical area, when you look at the valley as a whole, is over 1 million people. So they fare very well when in these formulas. In Laredo, instead of population, we have trucks, we have tractor trailers,
Mm-hmm.
and none of the formulas at this time, with, for example, the Department of Transportation, give that an advantage. So ever since 20 years ago that I've been involved with the city and involved at the state level, we've been working on trying to change that and trying to bring more infrastructure to the city of Laredo. And when I say that, I'm talking about Loop 20, the I-35 interchange there on Milo. And you may say, well, those are state projects. Well, the city is very involved, very engaged, and in many cases we have a match of funds that we match the state and federal grants. So having worked in the city manager's office and looking at the planning department and the transportation department, again, infrastructure is right at the core of what we do for the city.
In speaking of economic development, what's the biggest challenge facing Laredo in developing this community? I know everybody wants a water park, right? Everybody watching wants a water park, but no, I think it's more than that. You mentioned quality of life. You mentioned the infrastructure, the trucks, tractor trailers that cross on a daily basis. What's the challenge facing economic development here in Laredo right now that you see?
Well, I don't see it as a challenge, but as opportunities.
Love that.
Because what is economic development? Economic development is, basically driving business to our city. And what can the city do? And to do that, again, I've talked to you about, it's not only the city, but there's different stakeholders. We need to be, holding hands with the Laredo Development Foundation. We need to be holding hands with the Chamber of Commerce. We need to be holding hands with the county, with the LCC, with TAMIU. These are institutions and other entities who together we can make a huge difference. And those opportunities is each one of us knowing our role and being able to work together and competing against other areas that compete, with us. So when we talk about, so what can we offer, we need to find a way to bring more people to Laredo, making Laredo some kind of a destination, not only for the U.S. but for Mexico.
Right.
And so we thrive on transportation. We thrive on logistics. We're basically everybody else's envy when we look at the Port of Laredo as the second largest port in the United States. We handle over 60% of the business with Mexico through Laredo. So we need to continue that, but we can be a lot more. We can be a lot more. And so, we've been working on a convention center, and a convention center that will also bring, more visitors to the area. And what does that do? As we bring more people to the area, it generates more restaurants, the need for more restaurants, the need for more hotels, the need for more, historical areas. So those are all opportunities as part of economic development that may take time, but we should be working on that on a daily basis. And again, we should be working together on those things.
And you talk about the time that it takes. Hence, you were in terms of city government and city participation, a big part, you led the charge on the city side for the comprehensive plan, the Viva Laredo plan. A couple of weeks ago, I had Viviana Frank, who was also a part of that. And you know, when I hear what a lot of people want is they want a thriving downtown. They want restaurants and places they can go. Is the convention center, do you think, going to be kind of the shining star for downtown once that project happens? And is that the reason why we're putting it in downtown?
Well, I think that the convention center is a project that has been worked on for the last 15, 18 years. We've done several feasibility studies. It's hard to say that that is the right place because there could be several right places and several sites we're taking into consideration at different times. But what I will tell you is that the downtown in Laredo needs an infuse of investment. It needs to have something revive it. And so City Council has been really good about focusing on downtown. They've really come together to help the councilmen of that district and as a council invest in downtown. And I admire them for having that vision. The convention center will be one of the projects that'll help redevelop downtown. So there's been over $100 million investment in the outlet mall, and everybody looked at as the catalyst for the downtown. And so now, 2 years into it, we've seen that it's made a change, but by itself, it's not going to be that champion. It needs to be complemented with other projects. Right. And the convention center is another project that will complement the outlet mall. And then we need to continue to look at what are their opportunities so that it starts generating these smaller businesses. And when you look at downtown, you know, downtown property values have been in a decline. And it's going to take these type of projects to, you know, bring them, having jumped back up to where they were, you know, in the past. Yeah. And, you know, we use the arena and the Unitrade Stadium as an example. When back in 2000, when the arena was built, it was nothing but ag land. And, you know, we'd like to think that as a result of the arena being there, the infrastructure moved in that area, took advantage of the loop, and some of the highest property values in Laredo are in that area now today. Yep. If you look at before and after, it takes these type of projects that on the surface as operations, they may not make money, but the impact to the area and going back to economic development is really, really high. So we're looking at the convention center to do something like that for downtown.
Absolutely.
But it's got to be complemented with, you know, a whole other projects that we continue to work on with the support of City Council.
Is it the city's? A lot of people think this, and I have just conversations ahí en la carne asada or whatever, right? So, you know, and you talk to family members, and some people think it's the city's job to develop the city. I've always been an opponent of that idea, that concept. I think economic development, a big part of it, is going to depend on private investment. And I see you nodding your head in agreement because it's true. I think private investment, city government can't do everything for us. Private investors, you know, people that are watching this, that dream of a business, that dream of doing big things for their community and want to open up shop, it's really going to take them. How do we boost private investment into the city?
Well, I think it's the city, the government's responsibility to create the environment for the private investment and private business to come in and do well. And how do we create that environment is by not necessarily over-regulating where there's no need. You know, we should be concerned with safety, we should be concerned with equality, but many times we get too involved in regulations that may be barriers for business. The other thing that city government is responsible for is to incentivize that investment in this area. Today's competition, people can open up a franchise business in Laredo, or they can go open it up in San Antonio, and they're going to look at where is their biggest return on investment. And so we need to sell ourselves and incentivize them to come here. And so we do that by looking at, okay, what do we have to offer? And when if we're talking about, we talked earlier about the Port of Laredo, and people want to be here because this is where it happens. So you would think that we don't necessarily have to incentivize that much, but we need to provide good infrastructure, going back to that. But if we're talking about quality of life and having franchise restaurants and having the water park that you talked about, okay, so how do we incentivize that? People not necessarily are going to come and invest if they don't see the numbers work, but
right.
Maybe city government can help with that, either by providing land, or helping in the operations. And so again, if that is a priority and that's what we want, that's where the city's role is.
In terms of economic development department, something that I know you're actively working on, how far along are you with that department? What will be the function of the economic development department of the city? What's the progress with that right now?
Okay, so the last budget cycle, we were able to have council appropriate funding for the hiring of a director, a little bit of staff, and just establishing the office. And so that was our kickoff of the economic development department. Through the year, we were the first 2 quarters, we were looking at how revenues were going to fare, and we started the recruitment process. This is a very critical position. Who will be the director is important because they'll kick off this department. And the responsibility of that department is, back to what we talked about, is helping council create that policy as to what are our incentive programs. And some of that has already been done, but it's been worked out of the city manager's office. And so it's worked on sporadically. When somebody comes in with a project, we basically jump on it. And the idea of having a department, when we look at a city of our size and you look at other cities, they basically work on this on a full-time basis, 24/7, 365 days a year. We want to get to that, and because competition is tougher. And so it's important that we continue on that. We are right now we've done interviews. We have several candidates that we're looking at, and we're about to make a recommendation for hiring and continue in that trend. This is important because there is so much to work on. There is so much to do. The other area is, how do we fund this? How do we have a stream of funding that will help us, do good? And so the transition from a sports venue tax to a 4B, tax is important to look at that, have it in our vision, because most cities, that's the funding source that they use to drive economic development. And it's just that while the sports tax has done well for us, we need to now broaden, our opportunities with a 4B tax. So if we can find a way to transition, again, this department will be working on that as we move forward. And then, doing outreach and looking at, those investors out there that, having data that we can put out there, where, we become attractive and we become, the opportunities for retail, for residential construction, commercial construction, more industrial construction. So, we need a team to just focus on that.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that there's going to be a department that's going to try to attract business, and that's their main goal. So I'm excited about that, because that really just opens up the doors, because now you've got a full set team working hard to get people to invest in the city, and that's exciting for everybody walking the streets of Laredo, because now what that does is, man, just it means restaurants, it means things to do. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't really get is that we need that private investment. So I'm glad that you're putting that team together. That's exciting for what's coming up in the next few years. It's like you said, it takes time, but we're getting there. I got a couple more questions. Budget discussion coming up. When budgets, and I'm sure you've been through many budget discussions, and how do you chill out, through those discussions? How do you handle the pressures of the office? How do you maintain with all the responsibilities that are on you? You're carrying the city. How do you stay sane? I'm throwing you for a loop on this one, but I've always wondered that. How does like the guys out there that have to, and the women out there that have to balance so many things, and in particular you have to balance the entire city and you've got to carry it, so to speak. And I know you got staffers and everybody, but if you're passionate about the city, which I know you are, how do you maintain?
Well, it's through the grace of God, but this is not a one man show. There, like you mentioned, there's a lot of staff members behind me that work continuously on this, and so it's important to have tenured people, people that have done this years, and that we look at the unexpected, and we also work with council, and council is also very responsive to the needs, and so it's a team effort. And the 25 years of basically working for the city and seeing year in, year out different budgets, and so that brings a lot of also experience, that it's not like, this is the first year I see this, and so that has helped a lot. But it is a tough job. It is a tough job just to do the job, much more to deal with either budget shortfalls, loss of revenue, or just different things that come to the table. But again, one man doesn't do it all. There's and I want to thank everybody who's behind the work, that we have very good employees, we have very tenured employees that make my job easier.
That's humility, ladies and gentlemen. The man will not take credit for himself. No. I'm gonna get it out of here. When you fail, how do you handle failure? And I'm sure you've failed many times throughout your career. How do you handle that? How do you handle failure? Is there an approach? I know you mentioned, the higher power is God, but what does it motivate you? What happens when you fail? I mean, do you close the door? Do you have like a secret room that you go into in the city manager office, and you're like, you yell at the top of your lungs, and then you come out and you're nice and quiet, or what? How do you do it?
Well, Cash, you got to understand that even in failure, you grow. In fact, I tend to believe that when you fail, you grow the most. And so it's okay to grieve, about it for a little bit, but then you got to keep going. You got to stand up and got to keep going. And you got to do it for those people that are there with you, that are looking at you as to, how bad is this going to be? You also have to take responsibility, as the person, at the top of the totem pole, regardless of whether you were aware or not, you are responsible, and you have to take that responsibility. And people that follow you respect that. And so, there's so many things going on in this city that you're going to fail at some things, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that you continue trying, and I think that persistence will always win. And so, over the last 25 years, It's been about being persistent. Never thought I would become city manager, and so it's been tenacity, persistence, and so here we are. But again, I couldn't have done it without everybody that has supported me, my family, friends and staff, and more than anything, city council members and the mayor.
Absolutely. 5 years from now, what is City Manager Horacio de Leon up to 5 years from now?
Well, Cash, nowadays, we take it day by day. We take it day by day. We take it year by year, contract by contract.
Yeah.
But, I'll be here as long as, the city council wants me here. I want to be a benefit. I want to be something that basically helps to improve on. And the day that's not seen, I'll be the first one to say, thank you for the opportunity. And so I know, as having been here 25 years, worked under 5 city managers, worked under 5 mayors, I know that day will come. And I've told my family and friends, it may come in a year, it may come, later, but it's going to come. And so, again, as an employee of the city, I've been prepared for that. And again, we'll do what needs to get done.
Absolutely. Well, I think it would be unwise to not have you run the office for any time less, personally. And this is the first time you and I have sat down and had a really, really deep conversation. But as I started to read about your accolades, and I hear you speak right now, and the things that you've said, I know when somebody's passionate about the city, because I am passionate about this city. I love this city. I put on for my city all the time. And it's always cool when you link up with people who feel that same way. And I'm getting that energy from you, Mr. City Manager. So I'm pretty excited for the next few years for City of Laredo, the projects and everything that you're cooking up. We'll end with this one. What do you do? 5 o'clock rolls around, and Friday comes around. I know sometimes you'll have events, but what do you do? What's your thing outside of city government, city politics? Is it the golf course? Do you drive out to Lake Casablanca, you roll the boat out, you're out there casting, carnita asada. Everybody has their little what's your thing?
Well, let me first say that there is no 5 o'clock here. My contract says you will be available 24/7, 364 days a year. So normally our day starts sometime around between 8:30, and it ends about 8:30 at night. Council meeting days, it ends at 11 o'clock at night. And sometime in the middle of the night you'll get this call about something going on. So it doesn't end, but we enjoy it. We know that comes with the territory. Sometimes during the middle of the day we have to step out and do something personal because there's no time after there is no 5 o'clock. So personally, I've always been an outdoorsman. I like the ranch, and so as soon as I have some opportunity, I'll head out there. I like hunting, fishing. I've always done that. I'm passionate about that. Since I took this job, the time that I've been able to spend out there is a lot less, and so. But I believe that there's been quality time opportunities with my family, my sons. And so that's basically what I do.
Pal rancho.
Al rancho, and just go breathe some clean air, out there, and just kind of rethink. You're always thinking about work. You're always thinking about, okay, so how can we address this issue? But it's opportunity to just kind of step aside and spend some time. But yeah, it's been very, very fulfilling work, and especially when you see that you can make a change for
Absolutely.
For the better.
Horacio de Leon, City Manager of the City of Laredo, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Manager, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. No, thank you for the opportunity, for letting us speak to you today. I'm just excited about what you've got coming up. Before we end this, though, did we touch everything?
I think we did.
We did, right? We
Yes.
touched on everything. Okay. If not, I hope we'll get a chance to sit down with you again and talk a little more city business. But thank you again to you for taking the time out of your schedule, and to all of you for watching again. Like, share, post, leave your comments. We'd love to hear your feedback. And a big thank you to our sponsors, Family Chevrolet, Family Nissan, for keeping the lights on. We thank you so much for watching. This has been another installment of Grow Yourself.